So I needed that conception change. I needed the understanding that this is my salvation, God's gift, not the can you imagine how many calories those drinks have? Those gloopy drinks you buy in coffee shops or all kinds of crazy stuff. And the food too. Again, the sources were all the salt, oil, and sugar. SOS they call it. And someone told me the other day that an acronym there is Save Our Ship. That's where it comes from, right? SOS. And we got to save ourselves. We're dying from this food. 75% of the country is overweight and obese, and it's all due to the corporations. You want to be a slave to them. We have an answer here, but we can't fight it. We can't go to these big diet places that give us foods with the same little morsels. I mean, they say, oh, we'll give you a dessert, but it has to be this big because it's still full with all the junk and poison and no nutrition. You know, you could eat 10,000 calories a day, but you're dying, your body's craving nutrition. And people say, and I use this example here, they say, oh, I'm addicted to sugar. Well, here's sugar. This is God's natural gift. It's not processed, but it has fiber and healthy nutrients in it. That's released slowly in the body, which keeps you very healthy. And by the way, a lot of these foods, I eat grains and things like that. They have, you know, I put maybe something hot sauce on or something like that. You know, these different foods. It's just, the whole point being that it's all natural and it's not processed and it's not, you know, it's just not laden. I don't need all of that synthetic stuff because what it does, it changes our palate and we can't enjoy real foods. Okay, hi everybody. As you saw in the lobby, it's the cure for gluttony. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of us are here, right? We have a lot of maybe different addictions, and we use the meeting for alcohol, drugs, and being addicted to people. But one of the ones is, and a lot of us are here for, is gluttony, right? Being gluttonous. Now, it could be about food, but when you use the word gluttony, you can be gluttonous about anything. And it's usually about the self wanting to get more for ourselves, more pleasure out of life. That's the reason we do everything, right? To have joy and happiness. We're looking for a momentary pleasure in material things, things outside of ourselves, where the real joy and happiness is from within here. But the interesting thing with gluttony and our binge eating or our obsession towards food, it could be anorexia, bulimia, any kind of obsession. But if we start and look in the big book on page 23, and there is a solution. I always say there's a reason why they call the chapter, There is a Solution. So the cure is a solution, right, for our gluttony. And it says here, about the third or fourth sentence down, therefore the main problem of the alcoholic, and we could put anything in there, right, binge eating, anorexia, whatever it is, gambling, any kind of obsession, centers in the mind rather than the body. So the main problem, and it also says in the next sentence, the allergy, they're talking about the allergy of the body, it said, would become academic pointless if our friend never took the first drink. So let's talk about these foods and these things that become addicted to in our addiction. But if we change our perception, we will never have the necessity to get into what's called the allergy of the body. And the allergy is related to these crazy foods we have today. Processed foods laden with processed sugars, synthetic sugars, hydrogenated oils, all of these things, salt, oil, and sugar. So the mind is the first thing that we have to understand where the problem is. And what's the thinking and what's the cure? Well, we have what's called the 12 steps. Step 1 says we're powerless, right? That gives us a clue right away that why it hasn't been working. All of these years, people try and they say 95% of diets fail. How come the harder we try, the more we try to put self-will and our own effort into something, does it fail? That's what step 1 tells us. And step 2 said we had to be restored to sanity. So I started to realize the reason why my own thinking couldn't get me out of this problem with my addiction was because it was my best thinking that got me. It was my crazy thinking. But I never wanted to admit. I never wanted to surrender. If you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. I always wanted to hold on to the idea, the thought that my thinking, that if I really, really try hard enough through self-will, I could control this illness, this disease, from binge eating or whatever obsession you have towards food. I keep on saying that because we have all kinds of, even our obsession with people, whatever it is in life. So step 1 said we had to surrender. We had to let go. And step 2 said to be restored. Again, I always thought everything else was the problem. If only this would happen, that would happen in my life, or people would treat me a certain way, then my life and their life would be great. And started to realize that the real thing was the thinking, perception. Perception is 99% of life. if you have 10 people in the same situation, they all have 10 different opinions of it. So the perception is the problem. We can't fight it anymore. We stop fighting anyone or anything. And it says in our promises, by this time the problem will have been removed. And this step 3 tells the solution. If we go to relate it directly to the whole program. Again, this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous is all related to what's called the spiritual solution. And through the ages, they had all kinds of philosophies, ancient Greek philosophies, religions, and Eastern, Western religions. And what these men did, these people, actually there was a woman involved too, in the very first 100 people who put this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous together, they're really desperate. So they had to find a solution. They incorporated. The first 164 pages of this big book incorporates all the philosophies and religions. I had shelves full of bookfuls of these different religions and philosophies, but I could find it all in this book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the main literature for Overeaters Anonymous. But anyway, to get back to our topic, the cure for gluttony. Again, I said it's in these steps, that perception change, a change of thinking. Why do we become gluttonous? Why do we look for, and I said we're always looking for happiness. That's why we do everything in life. But we're looking in the wrong places. We're looking for the food to make us happy, something material. Keep on, it's never enough, whether it's food, money, success, whatever it is. We can't find enough of it. So we need a perception change. And on page, again, there is a solution on page 25. It explains a little bit about what happens when we do these steps. It says, on the second paragraph down, the great fact is just this and nothing less, that we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. So there we go. We need a perception change. No matter how many diets I went on, I was making the urge stronger. I was fighting it. I didn't go for the perception change. I says, well, if I just control this or I control that. What I needed to do and what happened to me through these steps in this program, like everything in life, because it says in here, the answer to all my problems, I started to perceive differently the food and what it's doing to me, and the nature of the food, and nature of my body, and get in touch when I'm quiet and pausing, and meditation prayer we have, then I can actually, the body knows how much to eat. We have in our brain a hypothalamus which directs us on what to do. It's our crazy thinking, what's called the defects of character, where we get back into the self and we're trying to control things, and we get into the emotions. Hunger is an emotion that is off center. It's called, we have what we call in our program bedevilments. We get into the anger, the fear, frustration, and the gluttony comes from what's called the 7 deadly sins, which Bill wrote about on page 48 in the AA 12 and 12. And number 1 is pride and anger and all of these emotions and feelings. Same with, this is the cure here. Look, you can feel hungry, but it's how you relate to it. You can feel gluttonous, but it's how you relate to it. So you can have these emotions, or resentment or anger. But when you get those emotions, understand their nature and where they're coming from. God's gift is to be joyful, happy, and feel full with the spirit, the spirituality of our life. And we have a spiritual side, not going all the time what's called things of the flesh. It's all, the cure has to do with bringing into us and being fulfilled and sustained by, could be nature and feeling the love and people around us, the vibrations around us. That should be our substance. So we have the perception change where we drink of that and bring that. I always call it spiritual bread, right? Spiritual bread. By the way, as you know, it's very low in calories. So the perception change, and the perception change could be God's gift with everything. My body's God's temple, but also God gives a gift of water. The higher power didn't give us the gift of what the corporations give us with 1,000 calories full of all the poison in, and the foods too. It's the processed foods, what they put in them. Then we became a prisoner to that. And I start out by saying, it's our thinking that's the problem. But look at the way we're brought up. All the commercials, everything around us, you go in a supermarket, 95% of the foods, the colorful packaging, and you look on it, it's 50 ingredients, which actually are much where all the calories are, and it's devoid of nutrients. But also they put chemicals in there. The scientists and psychologists sit down and figure it out that go into your brain and release the endorphins and the dopamine and make you feel good. But synthetically, it's a drug. Just like being on cocaine or whatever it is, or crack. That's the type of dealers they are. And from that comes all the problems in life when you go after something of what we call of the flesh, meaning that it's looking for, we never have enough. So the cure is to replace that. And the steps talks about step 3, says give our will and our life over the care of a higher consciousness. That higher consciousness has to do with God's gift of living life. And God's, we also have here like fruit and stuff like that. This is God's gift. And these have nutrients in there. They have, and if you like sugar, they have sugar in them, but it's fiber, which is very healthy and is processed slowly. So whatever type I'm on a whole food plant-based diet, but whatever type of diet you're on, the whole key is this. It's the processed foods that's the problem. If you get back to the wholesome natural stuff that God provided, and this is the cure, is when you get centered and you look at food and you'll see the real true nature. You won't be fooled. It's just like when we get centered and we become more spiritual, we don't get fooled by the things of money or success, which made us miserable. That's another thing in life that made us do crazy things and get miserable and bring us into our addictions and back to the food, back to the alcohol, the drugs. So the whole thing in this program, in the 12 steps, is the cure to our gluttony, because again, it says 12 says having had that spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So you want that spiritual awakening, you want to see life in everything. It's all the same thing, whether you're gluttonous towards food or gluttonous towards people liking you or gluttonous towards success or doing better than others. We have a solution here. And it says, I read on page 25, but also 27, if you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. This has to go with the whole point and the whole idea, why the other things don't work. Because what happened was Roland Hazard, back in the day, before the book was written, around that time, he went to see Dr. Jung in Europe. And when to cure his alcoholism, he's from a very wealthy family, but he had to take a course back then. He had to take a boat all the way across the ocean, and he went over there. And it was the same time Freud was around. And he analyzed himself, and he says, Roland Hazard says, I learned about the mainsprings of the mind. So he had all of this self-knowledge. And he said when he went back home, he's drunk in no time. And it's just like me. I had all kinds of diet books. I went to all the experts. And I talk about, a few weeks ago, I saw a lecture about dieting, and they talked about everything. There were doctors, scientists, nutritionists there, all professional people. But the one word I didn't hear was spirituality. And I had read, right, in the doctor's opinion, if you go back to that in our big book, on page Roman numeral 29 and 28 and 29, it says on 28, must be grounded in the power great in themselves that recreate their lives. And on 29, Dr. Silkwood says, near the top, and unless this person can experience entire psychic change or little hope recovery. So I never had that entire psychic change. I tried everything by self-will. I wasn't changing at all. I was just using myself, the same stupid thinking that got me here. They say my best thinking got me here was trying to resolve the problem. I couldn't resolve it, but actually, when you think about it, it was really my higher consciousness that could. That's within me. I was creating God's image. We have two sides. We have what's called the material things of the flesh side, being in the everyday and experiences of life. But we also can rise above that through our spiritual thinking, realize that these everyday things and our thinking in relation to them really isn't reality. It's the falseness of it, just like you're inundated with all of these commercials and stuff about the value of all of these foods that are killing you in life. So what happened, though, when Roland Hazard went back to see Dr. Jung on page 27, he pleaded with the doctor. He said, is there no help or anything I can do? And so the doctor finally said, Dr. Jung, he has seen cases such as you who have recovered. Because he's considered, and he says there on page 26, he says that Roland Hazard, he said he was a hopeless variety. If you're hopeless and feel you're hopeless with your food addiction or your addiction to whatever it is and whatever compulsion you have towards it, then here's a solution. He's saying about the cure that Dr. Jung said to Roland Hazard. It's the third full paragraph down. Yes, replied the doctor, there is exceptions to cases such as yours have occurred since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics, you could say compulsive eaters or compulsive anything, have had what are called huge emotional, displacements and rearrangements, ideas and emotions and attitudes were once the guiding force of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one set, and a completely new set of conception motives began to dominate them. So we needed that perception change. And, on page 63, when you go into step 3 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, on page 63, and this is where the change comes. This is where the cure comes in. It says, as we go down about 10 sentences down, it says, as we felt new power flow in, this is right about step 3. As we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of His presence, we began to lose fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter. We were reborn. So we had to be reborn in thinking. But again, it's towards the food, but the food is related to everything in my life. All that self-centered fear and the upset I had in life and my addiction and the needing these material things was replaced with my spirituality. In spiritual programs, in religions, in philosophies, they do fasting. Why? Because they realize things of the material things, whether it's money or food or whatever it is, takes you away from the real joy and happiness. God created us to be joyful and happiness, but we get in the way with our obsessions and our crazy thinking, or what's called defects of character. And just the third step prayer, it says, relieve me of bondage of self in the middle of the prayer. The self is the one filled with this need and desire, and when the hunger comes along, it's that disease, the need to satisfy the self. But we could observe those and understand the falseness of it. And when we have those observations, the perception changes now that I don't need all that food and my stomach bloated and my brain all of this stuff. What I need is God's gift and the leanness and healthy foods and not making food and overindulging and portion control, right? It all comes from that perception change. There's no other way out. No other way out of this whole situation. We have what's called the spiritual solution.